Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Linda. If you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for weekly beginner quilting tips and tricks. Say that to me times fast. So today I'm going to talk to you about why I quilt. So I started quilting 21 years ago. The reason why I started quilting was I was inspired by my mother-in-law, who was a quilter, but also I was recently diagnosed with asthma, and at the time this made sense, and I still haven't done it, but at the time I thought making my own bed quilt would be a good idea. You know, I would have more control of the fibers, and since I was newly diagnosed and I was on inhalers and all of that, still haven't done it, folks. But at any rate, 21 years later, we're still quilting, which is good. Why I quilt, the main reason is stress relief. Yes, quilting can be stressful, especially when your seams don't go together. Won't talk about what's behind me. There's lots of oopsies in that quilt, but that's okay. Close enough is good enough, as my mentor, Angela Walters, always says. Creativity. This gives me a creative outlet. I am not an artist. My husband is an artist, which is fun to watch. And I wish I had that skill. I do not. Definitely not at all. So it gives me a creative outlet. I have also found over the years, remember I said 21 years, that I've tried to push myself away from the perfectionism. And you heard me talk about the mistakes back there. So clearly it's not totally working. But I try to push myself to not be totally concerned about perfectionism, because it's very evident. If your points do not go together in a quilt, very evident. However, nobody's going to notice. And I love to see a quilt come together. You know, just piddling along and sewing blocks and sewing rows. That's all great, but just watching the magic of it come together and sewing those rows into that final quilt top, it's one of my favorite things. And the real reason why I quilt is I gift about 95% of the quilts that I make. I have made somewhere between 150 and 200 projects in my 21 years of quilting, which for some isn't, for me, is probably not much compared to many, and that's okay. It's not a race. But I love to gift quilts, especially baby quilts. They're like my favorite thing to do. I take much pleasure in that, and I actually find it fun when a new mom or a soon-to-be mom looks at me and says, well, what happens if he throws up on it? It's okay. It's perfectly washable. It will not fall apart. Anyway, so that is my reason why I quilt.